Well, hello there, and welcome to a new video. I hope that you're doing fine and that your summer was filled with blissful moments. Summer in this part of France didn't really happen this year. We've been waiting and waiting and waiting, but we got rain for the most part and not so much sun and, well, summer-like days really, which was both a blessing and a curse, to be honest. Nothing really took off at the garden, and blight came very early this year. Our 30 tomato plants, which we all started from seed, had to be pulled out, but we enjoyed the harvest of so many other plants like zucchinis, salads, flowers, potatoes, and so on. On the other hand, my needles have been busy. Last time that I updated you with my knitting, I was working with Plötulopi, and I must say that I have been working with it throughout the whole summer. Cooler days meant that the warmness of the wool didn't really bother me. Therefore, many projects have been completed and new ones were started. So get ready, because I got you covered for the next coming month. The herringbone sweater in Plötulopi that I've shown you last time has long been completed. I loved it so much that I decided to cast on for a cardigan version as well in another shade of Plötulopi. These neutrals are just everything. They're going to work so well with everything that I have in my wardrobe this fall and winter, and I can't wait to start layering my high-waisted skirts and long dresses with all of these beautiful jumpers. The Wild Posy tee has already been released, and the winter version, which is knit in Plötulopi yet again, will be available in two different versions. Flora for the light lace one, and Luna for the dark textured version. The test knits for both of these jumpers has already started, and it's been such an honor to see the progress that some of my test knitters have already made on it. This pattern should be available in English et en français at some point in October. And do you remember the wild Posy hat that I've shown you in the last video as well? The test knitting for that pattern should start very soon as well, because I have just finished writing the pattern, so I'm aiming to have these two patterns available in October. I told you that Plötulopi hasn't left me all summer. Even though my hands have been busy with all the design ideas that I tried to work on this summer, I tried to take the time to work on a few personal projects. Finding balance is one of the hardest things to do, I find. One part of me wants to create and come up with new ideas all the time, which means swatching to explore these ideas, which very often don't become anything. And on the other hand, working on very simple pieces that my loved ones could wear during the color month. Very basic and mindless pieces that I can work on at the end of the day when the brain is simply not functioning anymore. Oh, and did I mention gift knitting? One day, as I was wrapping up the Wild Posy tea, which I have yet to show you, I imagined a very simple and plain version which I could wear over everything. Well, it turned out that the city where I live has a hidden yarn shop. I went there by accident, and the gods of the yarn put some balls of yarn in my hands, begging me to transfer them into the simple Wild Posy tea of my dreams. How could I refuse? I'm so very pleased with it. The fit is really nice and the color is heaven. But the yarn is the scratchiest thing I've ever worn. If you think that Icelandic yarn is scratchy, well, I'll need some kind of tank top to wear underneath for sure. I haven't knit for Iris in what feels like forever, and now that she turned 2 already, it's about time to add new pieces to her wardrobe. All of her clothes for this fall and winter have been thrifted, but when it comes to jumpers, Mama's a bit picky. She only has 2 left for the upcoming season to wear, including a lovely cable thrifted one and a little tulip jumper which I made her last year. She wore both of them so much and they are still in perfect condition, but they are getting short on the arms, so either I'm lazy and I can still add some length to the one I made, or I need to start knitting her something. I've been trying to be very good and use some of the lovely yarn that I have in my stash lately, because it's one thing to want more, but I feel that it's even more important to appreciate what one already has. So I went stash diving and decided to use 2 strands of the Natura Gilead. I picked the tulip jumper once again and started working on a size 2 or 4, I really don't remember. I made the sleeves fitted with extra length and turned it into a dress. It's so adorable on her. Now she needs a jumper and a cardigan, and she will be good for this winter. After completing her dress, I immediately started working on a 3-month baby tulip jumper for a dear friend of mine that is expecting. I've used 3 strands of yarn for her jumper, some Colorwork, some merino, and some silk mohair. The fabric that this combination of yarn created is heaven. It's probably the softest thing that I've ever knit, or either my hands are still traumatized after the simple Wild Posy jumper that I knit. It's so tiny. I absolutely love working on this pattern over and over again, using different yarn combinations, omitting the scallop portion, and just imagining cute little babies in cozy jumpers. At the moment, I have one very active work in progress, which is the Plotulopy cardigan. The body is done and I only have the sleeves to do, which is pretty mindless, so I needed something a little bit more challenging and exciting to work on. 2 days were spent on a swatch using 2 strands of Nutiden and 1 strand of silk mohair. I came up with a combination of texture and colorwork which I'm very pleased with, but don't know if both of them could be combined within the same sweater, so I'm waiting. In the meantime, something else came in the mail because, as you saw at the beginning of the video, I spent a little bit of time browsing for some yarn as I was looking for the perfect yarn combination for the new sweater pattern that I want to create. And it's not in Plotilopi. Shocking, I know. This yarn is something that I've had on my radar for so long, but haven't had the chance to try yet. But when I happened to be watching a documentary about the Hebrides the other day, I remembered that I wanted to get myself this yarn, so I did. This time of the year is probably the busiest for us. All of our time has been spent at the allotment garden when we're not working from home. We harvested all of our summer vegetables, and now's the time to prepare the beds for the winter and start sowing new things. Back at home, I'm trying to preserve as much as I can. Canning, drying, baking. The kitchen has never been more used. This year, I've started making my own body butter using calendula flowers from the garden that I've dehydrated, then infused in oil for a few months. And now that's the only moisturizer that I use. Herbs for tea and for cooking have been dried. Zucchinis have been transformed into cakes and put into the freezer. Apples have been turned into applesauce, and there's way more to do. But we'll be so grateful when the winter will come and all of this hard work will be appreciated. Tuesdays and Wednesdays are my busy days, as these are the two only days in the week that Iris attends daycare. So right after dropping Iris off on Tuesday morning, I make myself a cup of coffee and start making a weekly to-do list for the 2 days of work that I have secured. There's a lot to do today, so let's get started. I have 3 patterns that are almost ready to be published, but there's still a little bit of work to do on each of them, so I'll try to tackle that today. Admin as usual, which includes emailing. I have a video to record for my Patreon and a post to write. And as I'd like to have this video ready for you by the end of the month, I have footage to record and the editing part to do as well. Oh, and did I mention that I have already cast on with the yarn that I have just received? Sometimes the call of the yarn is so strong that I need to cast on right away, especially when I have quite a clear idea of what I want the design to look like, but that doesn't always mean that what I have in mind works the way I thought. This time around, it worked out pretty okay. I'm still debating whether or not I should do a fully textured version or simplify the yoke portion. So I did a poll on Instagram yesterday and the response has been so overwhelming. Before we continue with the knitting content, I'd like to share the sponsors for this month's video, Skillshare. As you know, if you've been watching my previous videos, I've been working with Skillshare quite a bit as I found their content so valuable. If I'm sitting, I'm knitting, and if I'm knitting, I need to be busy with something else as well. That's when Skillshare comes handy to me. Not only do I get to do my work, but I also get to learn new skills. Skillshare is an online learning community where thousands of creating folks share some of their knowledge and skills on all sorts of topics: embroidery, creative writing, pottery, you name it. I recently invested in an iPad as I've been wanting to get better at translating the idea of a design from my head to the paper, or the screen rather, and also to play with my patterns layout a little bit more. The software that I use for my schematic is a little bit dodgy and I struggle quite a bit getting the shapes that I want. Since following a lot of illustrators on YouTube, I've seen them using a software called Procreate, which I thought could be a good replacement for the one that I currently use. Luckily, Skillshare had a myriad of classes on the topic, but the 2 ones that I chose more specifically: Intro to Procreate, illustrating on the iPad with Brooke Glazer, and playing with shapes in Procreate, Illustrate a graphic still life with Sarah Beth Morgan. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Thank you so much, Skillshare, for sponsoring this video. been a while since I sat down like this to chat with you. And I don't think that I've done that in a year or so. I do that twice a month for my Patreon. I sit down and I explain all the things that I worked on during the month. But for YouTube, I don't know, I just found it more easy to just like record segments of me working rather than, I guess, taking the time to sit down and show you things. And I kind of like making my YouTube videos a little bit more cinematic, if you will. I just like pretty things. So obviously you only see me, you know, like knitting and doing all of the nice tasks, if you will. But most of the time I'm just sitting in front of the computer doing boring admin things, or I guess, you know, tasks that are not that interesting for you to watch. So yeah, like the whole morning today, for example, is what I've been doing. So not really interesting for you to see. But I just thought that as I was editing this video, I realized that I was talking about all of these jumpers that I've been working on as if you have seen everything, because I tend to forget that not everyone sees my work as I share it on Patreon. I don't always remember if I've shown you the pieces that I talked about, so I thought that I could grab all of the ones that are that I've kind of mentioned and show you what these are, so you have a better idea of what I'm talking about, I guess. So one of the work of today is to take pictures of this jumper. This is I just found the name for it. I've been looking, this has been finished for 6 months maybe. And I was just waiting for the right time to publish this sweater. So this one is coming out on the 29th of September. This is knit out of Emma, Woolly Mammoth Fiber. This is a BFL Maham DK yarn. Did I say that it's naturally dyed? It's naturally dyed and it's beautiful. The yarn is really, really lovely. It is drapey, and I worn that a ton this spring, and it's beautiful. It's oversized, slightly cropped, oversized sleeves as well, and a really nice neckline. So I'm gonna take pictures of that a little bit later today at the garden. And yeah, I was working on it this morning, trying to finish all the last touches for the pattern so it can be ready to be published. The next two, so you've probably seen this one quite a bit. This is my Wild Posy jumper version number 1, Flora with lace. I wore that a ton this summer as the weather was just the worst. So I wore Plotulopi in July, which really did not bother me. I love this jumper so much, and this is gonna be released in October with its sister version that I have yet to finish, sort of. I still have the cuff on my needles. I need to do the bind off. This is Luna, the sister version of Flora, the Wild Posy jumper. This one has texture instead of a lace, and it's knit in Plotulopi. Once again, this is the Dark Woods colorway, and this is the Heathery beige, I believe. They're the same, just a little bit different. Next jumper, more Plotulopi. This is yet unnamed and unfinished. I have to do the embroidery on the front because it has little flowers on the back. It's kind of a herringbone stitch on the yoke. It's a slip stitch pattern that I have used in my Wild Posy jumper, and I just love this texture so much. I have used it in another previous design a few years ago, and I just wanted to make it a little bit more whimsical, if you will, so I added some flowers over here, which I have yet to add on the other side, but I haven't done it yet because I need to record a tutorial for that. And last but not least is the cardigan version, which is knit in yet another Plotulopy colorway. This one is going to be sticked in the middle, and I'm going to keep it simple, so without any embellishments, any embroidery, because I like to have different things in my wardrobe, from like more busy pieces to more simple ones, I guess. So yeah, I have quite a few things, as you can see, and the other thing that you just saw a few minutes ago is this new design, which I'm gonna show you more of in the next video next month.